Let me ask you something, and don't answer this casual. How many times have you felt completely drained? Not because you worked too hard, but because you give your energy to the wrong people, the wrong problems, and the wrong thoughts. Most people think they're tired because life is demanding. But the truth is they're exhausted because they never learn how to protect their energy. And here's what most people don't realize until it's too late. Your life only grows to the level that your energy is protected. Most people wake up every morning already tired, and not because they didn't sleep, not because they worked too hard yesterday, but because they've been spending their energy like it's unlimited. Let me tell you something you may not have fully considered yet. Your energy is your most valuable currency, not time, not money, not talent, energy. Because you can have all the time in the world, but without energy, nothing meaningful happens. You can have money in the bank, but without energy, you won't enjoy it, grow it, or even protect it. Energy is the force behind every decision you make, every emotion you feel, and every action you take. Here's what most people get wrong. They think energy is something you manage after life happens to you. They wait until they're exhausted, frustrated, overwhelmed, or burned out, and then they try to recover. But high performers, fulfilled people, people who actually feel alive, they don't play defense with their energy. They play offense. They decide in advance that their energy is sacred. Sacred doesn't mean fragile. Sacred means intentional. It means protected. It means you don't hand it over casually just because someone demands it, or because a situation feels urgent, or because you're afraid of disappointing someone. When you decide your energy is sacred, you stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting to life and you start directing it. Think about this for a moment. Every single day, you are spending energy whether you realize it or not. You spend it on conversations, you spend it on thoughts, you spend it on worry, on regret, on comparison, on replaying moments that already passed and imagining futures that haven't happened yet. And none of that is free. Every emotional reaction has a cost. Every moment of stress drains something from you. The problem isn't that life asks too much. The problem is that most people never decide what deserves their energy. In the first place, when you don't decide, the world decides for you. Other people's problems become your problems. Other people's moods become your moods. Other people's expectations become your obligations. And slowly, quietly, your energy gets scattered. You feel busy but not fulfilled. You feel tired but not accomplished. You feel like you're doing a lot but moving very little. Now here's the shift that changes everything. The moment you consciously decide that your energy is sacred, you start asking different questions. Instead of asking, can I do this? You ask, should I give my energy to this? Instead of asking, what will they think? You ask, what will this cost me emotionally? And those questions create clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Let me be very clear about something. Protecting your energy does not make you selfish. It makes you effective. It makes you present. It makes you powerful. Because when your energy is drained, you're not more giving, you're resentful, you're short-tempered, you're distracted, you're half there. But when your energy is full and directed, you show up with strength, you listen better, you lead better, you love better. You contribute at a higher level. Most people think being available all the time is a virtue. They think saying yes to everything makes them kind, responsible, reliable. But what they don't see is that every unnecessary yes is stealing energy from something that actually matters. And over time, that adds up. You wake up one day and wonder where your passion went, where your patience went, where your sense of purpose went. It didn't disappear. You gave it away in small, unconscious moments deciding yours. Energy is sacred means you stop negotiating with your own values. It means you stop apologizing for needing space, rest, focus, or peace. It means you understand that your emotional state is not something to leave to chance, because your emotional state determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. Think about the times in your life when you felt unstoppable, fully alive, clear, focused, strong. In those moments, was it because everything around you was perfect? No. It was because your energy was aligned. You were spending it on things that mattered to you. You were saying yes with intention and no without guilt. You were present, not scattered. That's not luck, that's a standard. And standards are what shape destiny when you raise the standard for. How your energy is treated, everything else starts to reorganize around it. Certain conversations naturally fall away. Certain relationships either evolve or fade. Certain habits lose their grip on you. Not because you forced anything, but because they no longer fit the person you're becoming. And this is important to understand. Your nervous system is always listening to how you treat yourself. When you constantly override your own needs, when you ignore your own limits, when you betray your own boundaries, your body learns that you are not safe with yourself. Stress increases, focus decreases, fatigue becomes your baseline. But when you protect your energy consistently, your body learns a different lesson. It learns stability. It learns certainty. And from that place, performance skyrockets. This isn't about doing less. It's about doing what matters more. It's about choosing depth over distraction. meaning over motion, intention over impulse. When your energy is sacred, you don't chase everything. You commit to what aligns. And commitment, real commitment, is incredibly energizing. So many people are waiting for motivation to show up before they change. But motivation is unreliable. Energy, when protected and directed, is sustainable. You don't need to feel hyped every day. You need to feel aligned. Alignment creates energy. Energy creates action. Action creates results. Here's the truth that cuts through all the noise. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of how you invest your energy, not someday. Today, right now. Every choice you make is a vote for the future version of you. And when you decide that your energy is sacred, you stop living by default and start living by design. Because once you protect your energy, you protect everything it creates. Most people don't realize how much energy they lose every single day, not to hard work, not to responsibility, but to reactions. Emotional reactions, knee-jerk responses. That moment when someone says something, does something, looks at you a certain way, and suddenly your inner world is hijacked. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, your mind starts racing, and just like that, your energy is no longer yours. Here's the truth. Most people never stop to examine. Not everything deserves a reaction. And the people who win in life, the people who feel strong, grounded, clear, are not the ones who never feel triggered. They're the ones who don't let every trigger pull the pin on their emotion. Grenade. Think about how often people react without thinking. A comment online, a tone of voice, a delay in response, a disagreement, a criticism, a misunderstanding, and suddenly our S of mental energy are gone. Replaying the conversation, imagining what they meant, planning what you should have said. Defending yourself in your head to people who aren't even in the room. That's not awareness. That's energy hemorrhage. Most people believe reacting proves they care. They think if they don't respond immediately, strongly, emotionally, then they're weak or passive or letting someone win. But reacting isn't strength. Reacting is reflex. Mastery is restraint. When you react instantly, you're not choosing, you're being controlled. Controlled by emotion, controlled by impulse, controlled by someone else's behavior. And the moment someone else can dictate your emotional state, they have access to your energy. That's a dangerous trade most people make without even noticing. Let me say this clearly. Emotional discipline is not suppression. It's not pretending you don't feel something. It's the ability to feel without being hijacked, to notice the emotion without obeying it, to create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, that pause, that's where your power lies. High-level performers understand this intuitively. They don't give instant access to their inner world. They don't attend every argument they're invited to. They don't chase every misunderstanding. They don't try to control every narrative. They choose their responses deliberately because they understand something most people don't. Every reaction costs energy. Ask yourself this how. Many times have you been right but exhausted? How many times did you win the argument but lose your peace? How many times did you prove your point but drain yourself emotionally in the process? That's not a victory. That's an expensive mistake. Here's what happens when you stop reacting to everything. Your nervous system calms down. Your mind clears. Your presence deepens. You start seeing situations for what they are instead of what they trigger. You move from emotional survival mode into conscious leadership mode. And this is where people get uncomfortable because reacting feels familiar. It feels justified. It feels like self-protection. But in reality, constant reaction keeps you trapped at the level of the environment. You're always responding to what's happening instead of shaping what happens next. When someone provokes you and you pause instead of react, you regain control. When someone misunderstands you and you choose clarity over defense, you conserve energy. When someone tries to pull you into drama and you refuse the invitation, you protect your focus. And focus is fuel. Let me give you a distinction that changes everything. Just because something is true doesn't mean it needs to be said. Just because you're right doesn't mean you need to react. And just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to express it immediately. Most people think emotional maturity means expressing everything they feel. That's not maturity. That's impulsivity dressed up as honesty. True maturity is knowing when expression serves GR, outh, and when silence serves strength. Every time you choose not to react, you're not avoiding life. You're training yourself. You're conditioning your nervous system to stay regulated under pressure. You're building the ability to stay grounded when others lose control. And that ability compounds. Over time, people feel it. They respect it. They stop pushing your buttons because they realize the buttons don't work anymore. And here's the irony. When you stop reacting, you don't become invisible, you become magnetic. Your words carry more weight because you don't waste them. Your presence becomes steadier because you're not emotionally volatile. Your decisions improve because they're not made in the heat of emotion. This doesn't mean you become passive or disconnected. It means you become intentional. You choose when to engage and when to disengage. You choose battles worth fighting and release the ones that only drain you. You stop confusing motion with progress and noise with power. Think about how much energy would come back to you if you stopped reacting to things that don't align with your values, your goals, your future. Think about how much clearer your thinking would be if you didn't let other people's chaos live rent-free in your mind. Think about how much stronger you'd feel if you didn't hand your emotional state to. Every situation that passed by, most stress is not caused by what happens. It's caused by the meaning you attach to what happens and the speed of W. Hits you attach it. Slow that process down and stress loses its grip. You regain choice. And choice is the ultimate form of freedom. When you stop reacting, you start responding. Responding is conscious. Responding is grounded. Responding is aligned with who you want it to be, not just how you feel in the moment. And the more you respond instead of react, the more energy you preserve for what truly matters. This is how leaders are made. This is how inner strength is built. Not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. Not by winning every exchange, but by protecting your internal state. Because once your energy is stable, your actions become precise, your words become intentional, your life becomes directed, and the moment you realize that not everything deserves a reaction, you reclaim your power, if you want, to understand why so many people feel drained, scattered, and stuck. Despite working harder than ever, look at where their focus goes. Because focus is not just attention. Focus is direction. Focus is selection. Focus is the mechanism through which energy flows into your life or quietly drains out of it. Wherever your focus goes, your energy flows every single time. Most people don't lose energy because life is too demanding. They lose energy because their focus is constantly being pulled in 10 different directions at once. Notifications, opinions, comparisons, news, conversations, problems that aren't theirs, futures that haven't arrived, pasts that can't be. Changed. And every time attention fractures, energy fragments with it, think about how often your body is in one place while your mind is somewhere else. You're with people you care about, but mentally you're elsewhere. You're working on something important, but your attention keeps drifting. You sit down to rest, but your mind keeps replaying worries. That mental split is exhausting. Not because you're doing too much, but because your focus is uncontrolled. Here's the truth most people avoid. Focus is not something you find. It's something you decide. And if you don't decide where your focus goes, the world will decide for you. Algorithms will decide. Other people's urgency will decide. Your old habits will decide. And none of them care about your energy, your peace, or your future. High performers understand this at a cellular level. They are ruthless about their focus, not in a cold way, but in a conscious way. They know that every distraction has a cost. Every unnecessary mental loop has a price. Every moment spent focused on what they can't control is energy stolen from what they can. You don't need more willpower. You need clearer priorities. Because focus naturally follows what you decide matters most. When everything feels important, nothing truly is. And when nothing is prioritized, your energy gets spread so thin that even simple tasks feel, hey, let me ask you something important. How much of your focus today is actually aligned with the life you want to buoy up? LD. Not the life you're reacting to, but the life you're intentionally creating. If you're honest, you'll realize a large percentage of your attention goes to things that don't move you forward. Things that keep you busy, entertained, distracted, or emotionally engaged but not fulfilled. And here is the cost of that. Where your focus is scattered, your nervous system stays in a low-level state of stress. It never fully settles. It never fully engages. You're always partially alert, partially distracted, partially exhausted. That's not a motivation problem. That's a focus problem. Protecting your focus means you stop treating your attention like it's cheap. You stop giving it away to every thought that passes through your mind. You stop feeding every worry with analysis. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop obsessing over outcomes you can't control. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to protect your energy. Focus creates emotional states. When you focus on problems, you feel overwhelmed. When you focus on progress, you feel empowered. When you focus on scarcity, you feel anxious. When you focus on possibility, you feel energized. Same life. Same circumstances, different focus, completely different experience. This is why two people can live in the same situation and feel completely different. One feels trapped. The other feels challenged. One feels drained. The other feels driven. The difference isn't personality. It's focus. Now here's where people misunderstand this. They think protecting focus means forcing themselves to concentrate harder, grinding through distractions, fighting their mind. That only creates more tension. Real focus comes from clarity, from knowing what matters most right now, and letting the rest wait. You don't have to solve your whole life today. You just have to focus on the next meaningful action. One decision, one conversation, one step that moves you forward. When focus narrows, energy intensifies. You feel momentum again. You feel capable again. And momentum is energizing. Progress fuels confidence. Clarity reduces anxiety. When you know what deserves your attention, you stop wasting energy on what doesn't. This also means being intentional about what you allow into your mental environment, what you consume, what you scroll, what you listen to, what conversations you stay in. Your mind is constantly being conditioned by what you feed it. And most people are feeding it chaos while expecting clarity. You can't focus on growth while constantly consuming fear. You can't feel energized while bathing your nervous system in negativity. Protecting your focus means curating your inputs as carefully as your goals. And there's something deeper here that changes everything. When you control your focus, you reclaim your identity, because identity is reinforced by what you consistently pay attention to. If you focus on limitations, you become limited. If you focus on problems, why? How? Become reactive. If you focus on solutions, you become resourceful. This is why focus is a form of self-respect. It's you saying, my attention matters, my energy matters, my future matters. It's you choosing depth over noise, purpose over distraction, intention over impulse. When your focus is protected, your decisions become cleaner, your emotions become steadier. Your energy becomes available for creativity, leadership, and connection. You're no longer drained by everything because you're no longer paying attention to everything. And the most powerful part is this: focus is trainable. Every time you gently bring your attention back to what matters, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you reclaim energy. Over time, it compounds. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once drained you stops having access to you. Your future isn't built by what you think about once in a while. It's built by what you focus on consistently. And when you guard your focus ruthlessly, you protect the very energy that creates the life you want. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows and your life follows. Most people think boundaries are about pushing others away. They imagine walls, distance, conflict, awkward conversations, rejection, so they avoid them. They stay silent, they tolerate, they overextend, and then they wonder why they feel drained, resentful, and disconnected from themselves. But boundaries were never meant to separate you from people. They're meant to protect the best of you so you can actually show up fully here. It's the truth that changes the way you see everything. Boundaries are not walls, they're standards. And standards determine the quality of your life. Every time you tolerate something that doesn't align with your values, your nervous system notices. Every time you say yes when you mean no, your body keeps the score. And over time, that internal conflict turns into fatigue, frustration, loss of motivation. Not because you're weak, but because you're misaligned. Most people don't lack confidence. They lack clarity. They haven't decided what they stand for, what they protect, and what they no longer accept. So they negotiate with themselves. They minimize their needs. They convince themselves it's not a big deal. And slowly, their energy erodes. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about taking responsibility for your own emotional state. When you don't set them, you outsource that responsibility to the world. You let other people's demands, moods, expectations, and urgency dictate how you feel and how you live. Let me say something that might challenge you. People don't drain your energy, your lack of boundaries does. Because when you're clear, when you're grounded, when you respect your own limits, others either rise to that standard or fall away. And either way, your energy is protected. Here's what stops most people. They're afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being seen as selfish, afraid of conflict, afraid of being misunderstood. What they don't realize is that every time they avoid a small discomfort now, they create a much larger one later. Resentment builds, tension grows, relationships suffer, and the worst part, you start losing respect for yourself. Boundaries aren't loud. They don't require long explanation. They don't need justification. Strong boundaries are often quiet. They're lived, not announced. They show up in consistency, in follow through, in what you allow and what you no longer engage with. And when you respect your own time, people learn to respect it too. When you honor your own energy, people adjust. And when they don't, you gain clarity about who belongs in your life at the level you're growing into. Here's something important to understand. Setting boundaries will reveal who benefits from you having none, and that can be uncomfortable. But clarity is always worth the discomfort, because the relationships that survive your boundaries are the ones that were never built on your overextension. In the first place, think about how many times you felt obligated instead of inspired. How many times you showed up physically but checked out emotionally. That's not generosity. That's self-betrayal. And self-betrayal is one of the fastest ways to drain your energy. Boundaries give you your energy back. They give you space to think, to feel, to breathe, to recover. And from that place, you become more present, more engaged, more generous, not less. This is where people get it twisted. They think boundaries mean doing less for others. In reality, boundaries allow you to do more of what matters. They free you from guilt-driven commitments so you can invest your energy where it actually creates value. When you don't have boundaries, your life becomes reactive. You're always responding to what others want, need, expect. But when you set boundaries, your life becomes intentional. You choose, you decide, you lead. And leadership always starts internally. Your body thrives on certainty. When your boundaries are unclear, your nervous system stays on edge. It never knows what to expect. But when your standards are clear, your system relaxes. Stress decreases, focus improves, energy stabilizes. You feel safer inside your own life. This is why boundaries are not just emotional, they're physiological. They regulate your stress response. They protect your mental bandwidth. They preserve your creative energy. And here's the most powerful part. Boundaries teach people how to treat you without you ever having to argue. You don't have to convince. You don't have to explain. You demonstrate through action, through consistency, through calm certainty. Some people will test them. That's normal. Not to punish you, but to understand if you're serious. And when you hold your ground, not aggressively, not emotionally, but calmly, you send a message, you signal self-respect. And self-respect is magnetic. Let me be clear about something else. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They're not threats. They're agreements you make with yourself. And once you make them, your job is to honor them even when it's uncomfortable. The moment you stop abandoning yourself to keep the peace, something powerful happens. You start trusting yourself again. You start feeling stronger, more grounded, more whole. And that inner alignment is energizing. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world reorganizes. You attract healthier dynamics. You create cleaner communication. You experience less drama, not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer available for chaos. This is how you protect your energy long term. Not by controlling everything around you, but by deciding what you will and will not carry, what you will engage with, and what you will release. Because the quality of your energy depends on the quality of your standards. And when you raise your standards, you raise your life. And the moment you stop apologizing for your boundaries is the moment your energy comes back home. Most people believe that pushing harder is the answer to everything. More hours, more effort, more pressure. And for a while, that strategy seems to work. You get results, you make progress, you feel productive, but then something shifts. Your motivation fades, your patience shortens, your body feels heavier, your mind feels slower. And suddenly the thing that used to excite you now feels like a burden. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. Your system was never designed to operate at full intensity nonstop. Peak performance doesn't come from constant output. It comes from rhythm. From knowing when to engage and when to recover, from understanding that renewal isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. Here's what most people don't understand. If you only rest when you're exhausted, you're already too late. That's not recovery. That's repair. And living in repair mode keeps you reactive, fragile, and one bad week away from burnout. High performers don't wait until they're empty to refill. They build renewal into their lives on purpose, not because they're lazy, but because they're intelligent about their energy. They know that sustained success requires sustained fuel. Think about it. Everything in nature operates in cycles, day and night, tension and release, growth and rest. Even your heart beats in rhythm, contract, release, contract, release. If it didn't, life would end. Yet somehow people expect themselves to live without rhythm and wonder why they break down. Renewal is not about escaping life. It's about returning to yourself. It's about creating moments where your nervous system can reset, your mind can quiet, and your body can remember what safety feels like. Because when your system feels safe, energy returns naturally. Most people confuse rest with distraction, scrolling, binge watching, numbing out. That doesn't renew you, it overstimulates. Why? Ahu. True renewal calms the system. It grounds you. It reconnects you with your breath, your body, your presence. Ask yourself this honestly, when was the last time you rested without guilt, without checking your phone, without mentally rehearsing tomorrow, without feeling like you should be doing something else? For many people, it's been years. And that constant low-level guilt keeps their nervous system stuck in overdrive. You were never meant to live that way. When you don't schedule renewal, life schedules burnout for you. It shows up as exhaustion, irritability, loss of focus, loss of joy. And people misinterpret that as a lack of discipline or passion, when in reality it's a lack of recovery. Here's the shift. Renewal doesn't take time away from your life, it gives time back. When you renew, your decisions get sharper. Your emotions stabilize, your creativity comes online. Tasks that used to feel heavy feel lighter because you're no longer dragging a depleted system through them. Think about the moments when you felt most alive, most clear, most confident. Chances are you weren't running on fumes. You were rested, aligned, connected. That state isn't accidental, it's repeatable. Renewal also builds resilience. When life hits, and you're able to respond instead of collapse. You don't shatter under pressure because your system has reserves. You bend, you adapt, you recover faster. That's real strength. And let's be clear, renewal doesn't always mean stopping. Sometimes it means changing the quality of engagement, slowing your breath, stepping outside, moving your body, laughing, being present with someone you love, creating space between intensity and identity. You are not your output. You are not your productivity. And when you forget that, you start measuring your worth by exhaustion. That's a dangerous game that leads nowhere good. The most driven people often struggle with this the most. They pride themselves on endurance, on pushing through, on being the one who never stops. But endurance without renewal eventually turns into emptiness. And emptiness kills performance. Renewal is also where perspective lives. When you slow down, you see more clearly what matters and what doesn't. Problems shrink. Priorities realign. You stop confusing urgency with importance. That clarity alone can save enormous amounts of energy. Your body is constantly sending you signals. Tension, fatigue, restlessness, lack of focus. Those aren't weaknesses, they're messages. And when you ignore them long enough, the messages get louder. Renewal is how you listen before your body has to shout. This isn't about doing less forever. It's about doing better longer. It's about building a life where success doesn't cost you your health, your relationships, or your sense of self. When renewal becomes non-negotiable, something powerful happens. You stop living in survival mode. You start operating from fullness instead of depletion. And from that place, discipline becomes easier. Focus becomes natural, and momentum becomes sustainable. You don't have to earn rest by burning yourself out. You don't have to justify a recovery. You don't have to wait until everything. Energy is done because everything is never done. Renewal is what allows you to keep going without losing yourself. And here's the truth that ties everything together. Protecting your energy isn't about doing one big thing once. It's about honoring small rhythms consistently. Choosing restoration before collapse. Alignment before exhaustion. Presence before pressure. Because when you refill before you're empty, you don't just survive, you perform at your best.